Welcome everybody to this third module on the Peer Advocate Mental Health and Seniors Law Empowerment Framework. This session will just do a recap of what we learned in Module 2 and begin to focus on some additional learning in relation to Section 2.5, which is training, 2 recording, and how we apply the Mental Health Act and the Capacity Act. During Module 2, we begin to apply a case study to get you to understand how the legislation works, your power to challenge the police under 136 and the AMP and the Section 12 doctors when someone is assessed and taken to a mental health unit where they may be restrained. Hopefully, you can begin to look at the mental health unit is a place where people are placed when they're sectioned under the Mental Health Act. And do we or should we as the community challenge this definition of mental disorder, which is something that came up quite strongly in the report we just completed to the Department of Health and Social Care, and also the issue around health and safety, particularly of black communities. This is the video that you can look at that breaks down what we did during the Mental Health Act review. And one of the things we were trying to look at, which was something with a feature of Module 1, was do we need a culturally appropriate advice choice document, not to the traditional legal framework, which is something that's being discussed under the Mental Health Reform Bill, but something that's culturally specific to the community that gives us rights about the way we wanted to be treated if we were to be assessed, if we were to be sectioned, if we wanted to be restrained. And this advanced choice document, it's a community legal document that should be put together by culturally appropriate peer supports, not by Health Star, because we see it as a political legal document, an empowerment framework was based upon Ajibola's Mental Health Uses of Forces Act. Today, or through this training, you should get a better understanding of Section 5, the training that people need to take on board when they are actually in the process of constraint. Here we have another scenario for you to consider. It's the same case study, but it moves from being placed in the unit to someone behaving in a way that's expressing dissatisfaction with the process of being admitted and treated. So they're heard shouting at the nurses. They're accused of acute behavioural disturbances and seen as difficult. And so from Module 1, we want to begin to look at the different types of restraint that can be considered. Why is it considered, when it should be used? So the physical, the mechanical, and the chemical. But also thinking back to what we learned in Module 1 about the importance of seclusion and segregation that's often posed on patients in a mental health unit. But we also get you a visual perspective to what restraint actually looks like. If you've never seen it and never experienced it, these are the types of constraints that take place. The taser gun that was used in relation to Dayton Atkinson that led to his manslaughter and death from a cardiac arrest. The mechanical, which is often used in the early 70s and 80s, but also the physical, which is probably the most prominent one, and the chemical. The one we haven't mentioned is the prone restraint, which is the big challenge for mental health units. We want you to begin to reflect on some of your duties and responsibilities as a community to make the mental health unit accountable. Beginning to really understand, and this is really crucial for you as a community advocates or families, what is capacity? Here's a short definition. So it's decision based upon the issues of impairment or disturbance of a functioning that makes someone unable to make a decision. It should not be made upon cultural bias or stereotypes or perceptions of anger of black men, which is often used by the police. It's an issue around the duty of care in relation to Section 20 of the 2014 Care Act. It's a legal duty. Duty of care is legal and it's informed by values of the human rights legislation and the Mental Health Act. So when we go to Section 5 now, which I consider to be the most important part of the guidance that really shapes how we can actually work together from the community with practitioners to ensure they are working in a culturally appropriate way with patients on the ward. So the first thing is, and you can do your impact analysis using the measurement scale which I put in the third column. So it's, are they doing it well? Really well goes up to 10. If not, it's 1 between that continuum. Have patients been informed about their care plan? Because that can lead to frustration and triggers and a lack of empathy and a trauma-informed rather than trauma-free approach to working with black people in the wards. Are they showing respect for people's past wishes? Crucial. Are patients expressing wishes about how they want to be cared for and how they want to be treated? We can go back to Module 1 and the aspects of Module 2 about advanced choice documents or advanced legal cultural rights maybe a more appropriate term. More importantly, in page 34 and page 35, do they show respect for diversity and cultural rights, and a cultural care plan which has been developed by Gabrielle within her evaluation management positions, because this is crucial to informing discrimination and giving power to communities to make these mental health units more accountable. Section 5 is really productive and useful because we can look at what can we do to avoid the use of restraints. Is it really the least restrictive? Is it patient-centered? Does it lead to trauma? Is there a risk associated with someone being restrained? It's been looked at, the long-term social, psychological and cultural risk, particularly with the role of the police and the impact on someone's mental long-term health and physical health. And also we've got these implications of fear and anxiety about being in the mental health unit. But we're really interested about whether we are creating institutionally racist organisations that are using the restraint as a form of practice, which is actually not looking at the real issues around ethics and safety. So in terms of training, this is crucial. Ajibola Lewis is one of the central strategic stakeholders on the training that's been offered by the Restraint Reduction Network. It's really important that you look this up because this is been developed in conjunction with the Health Education and the National Health Service. And it's about protecting human rights and reducing restrictive practices. And the training people receive on the ward must be compliant with these standards, or people should not be authorised to carry out restraints. This is included in the health and social care, where coercion of any action or practice inconsistent wishes of the patients. And there must be a clear distinction that we start with de-escalation. That means reducing the friction, the anxiety, the conflict, the lack of respect that it could lead to psychological restraint. So in section 6 of the Mental Health Use of Forces Act, if someone is restrained, this is a really crucial issue for mental health units and for black people, it must be reported. It must address the public sector equality duty. It can be put on a digital system, but it must be guidance on negligible use of force. That means where it's light or it's gentle, and what we consider from capture where it's cultural and not recorded and not recognised. And families and patients do not have a cultural care plan that reflects the cultural wishes as a statutory requirement. And within that, there should be a restraint reduction plan that should be co-produced and analysed on a regular basis. We need to then move towards how to record, and this is quite crucial because without the recording, without the data, we can't measure the effectiveness of this community empowerment framework. The requirements of recording we will see on page 50 and 53 of the Mental Health Use of Forces guidance. And it's quite simplistic. There should be what is the reason, the type, the name, description, what efforts, and this is crucial for the communities, what efforts were made to avoid the restraint taking place. Then we've got the demographics, and we can actually interconnect this. Age, disability, race, which the one we really focuses on, but more importantly, serious injury. Has it been reported to the Care Commission? So the recap of Module 3 begins to do this. This last section is about your self-learning development as a community, empowering yourself. If you're able to sit down in groups, ask yourself each other questions about what did I learn, what was useful, what do I need to know now, and what do I need to do to make sure that my community is empowered to make sure no black person is illegally, culturally or professionally restrained. I thank you and I hope you enjoy these 3 modules.